Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, Longlegs. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I don't get accused of being a serial killer just because I'm tall. The synopsis is as follows. FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes an unexpected turn, revealing evidence of the occult. Harker discovers a personal connection to the killer and must stop him before he strikes again. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. This movie starts with Lee Harker as a young child. She comes across a very terrifying man, and then it flashes forward to her basically being a zombie-ish adult. She's working for the FBI, and is brought onto a case trying to hunt down a serial killer because she seems to have certain psychic abilities. She starts getting wrapped up in this case, finds out that she has a connection to it, and things get extremely twisted from there. Now that seems like a really interesting premise that actually could have similarities to something like the Zodiac. That's not the case with this movie. Although Lee has some kind of psychic abilities, they're not explored in this movie at all past 1 or 2 moments. And the way that this movie goes is messed up. I'm not talking horrific and twisted and violent because this movie is all those things. I'm talking satanic. And with the way the plot plays out, you don't understand a lot of what's going on until the end of the movie because they choose to exposition dump on you at the end. And I arrived at the end of this film not just being disturbed and disgusted, but being bored. So while the premise was interesting, the plot itself was pretty terrible. So for me, plot gets a thumbs down. 2 is family friendliness. Longlegs is rated R. There's a very mild bit of profanity, some very disturbing violence, including a lot of blood and gore that the camera does not shy away from, and some pretty horrific and disturbing things having to do with Satanism and the demonic. Absolutely not family friendly at all. Family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. There were not a ton of actors and actresses in this movie. Obviously, I wanted to see it because of Nicolas Cage. He's barely in this movie, but you get to see him do some Nicolas Cage things. And I did laugh a couple times when he did those. But it was kind of through this face of a grimace because of the nature of this film in general. Micah Monroe plays Lee Harker, and she basically was a monotone zombie for most of this movie. You do get to see her open up a little bit as the movie progresses, but for the most part, her acting performance was dull and boring. And the rest of the acting in this movie was not anything to write home about. I mean, the story that this film is telling itself is just so messed up and not very well told. And the script was okay in that process. I just felt like it was kind of bland. And in other moments, it was just super random and didn't make sense. It kind of just feels like Nicolas Cage wanted to be a part of this movie so he could say Hail Satan a few times. So for me, acting and script get a thumbs down. 4 is character development. There is not a ton of character development in this movie, it's just character progression. Just like the other detectives don't understand a whole lot about Lee Harker and how she has these psychic abilities, the audience doesn't either. And it doesn't help that the movie does not go back and revisit those psychic abilities at any point after the first part of the film, which was super disappointing because that could have been the most interesting part. But because this movie wanted to focus more on Satan, it forgot its most interesting dynamics. As the film progresses, you get to understand more about all the characters involved, but it's not deep. It's all surface level stuff that's never explored more. And it more so feels like you're kept in the dark about people's character progression for a lot of the film, and it never even touches character development. Which again made this film feel dull and like you don't care about anything that's going on. So for me, character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. This movie did some interesting things when it came to audio and visuals. There are certain parts of the film where it's shot in a crop frame, and that was more artistic than anything because I don't think it really added anything to the film. But from an audio perspective, all of the subtle and small sounds that normally wouldn't be paid much attention to in other films were dialed up like 10 levels on the audio front. And it did leave you feeling on edge for a lot of the movie. That and the fact that you didn't know when you're going to get a random jump scare. You're not jumping because it's scary, you're jumping because you're getting your eardrums blown out by the audio. I don't know why my brain was doing it, but I started hearing everyone's footsteps because they were so loud, and my brain was just keying in on that and being annoyed by it for the entire film. So I give this movie points for trying in this area, but it kind of went through the normal tropes of a horror film, just with louder audio. So for me, visuals and CGI get a 50-50. And 6 is rewatchability. Longlegs is an hour and 41 minutes long, but because of how slow and dull this movie was and the pacing issues that came up, this movie felt way longer than that. But since I watch these things so you don't have to, I decided to stick it out even though I was bored, only to find out at the end that it was super satanic and evil. I've seen some bad movies this year. I've seen some evil movies this year. But when you put both of those together and it just happened the way this one did, it just left me disturbed. It really feels like anything can make it into a movie theater nowadays, and that's really sad. For me, Rewatchability gets a thumbs down. With all these areas considered, I have to give Longlegs a 0.5 out of 10. I like that this movie tried something with visuals and audio, and the premise was a little bit interesting until you really found out anything about it. But the acting was dull, the storytelling was terrible, the audio was pretty annoying at times, and the plot exposition dumping Satanism on you at the end was just the cherry on top of a freaking terrible movie. Even if you're thinking about it, do not go see this movie. Do not waste your time and money, because objectively, it's not a good film, and on top of that, it's just disturbing. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Longlegs, I'm sorry, have fun scrubbing your brain. But let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.